Good morning, Robin. As Sherri Papini's elaborate web of lies unraveled, so is her marriage. Her husband, Keith, writing in this divorce filing that he and their 2 children are traumatized and they need time to recover and stabilize after finally learning the truth. Just days after confessing to faking her own kidnapping, Sherri Papini's marriage is over. Keith Papini filing for divorce from his wife of more than 12 years, requesting sole custody of the couple's 2 young children. In court documents obtained by ABC News, Keith writing, "I must act decisively to protect my children from the trauma caused by their mother."
Sherri's fraud, her fraudulent kidnapping, and then her cover-up efforts, and all of the lies that she told to federal, state, and local authorities can be used against her in the custody case. Not only that, but she's going to be going to prison for at least 14 months. And so the court has to consider all of those things when it makes a custody order.
Keith also asking the court to free him from any obligations to provide Sherri financial support. The papers filed 2 days after Sherri pled guilty to 2 felony charges, lying to federal agents and mail fraud, admitting her 2016 abduction was a hoax.
I'm going to do everything I can to find my wife.
Keith speaking exclusively to ABC News just days after Sherri reappeared, describing the moment he learned she'd been found.
Then I get the phone and, "Oh my God, honey," and of course she's screaming. It's very emotional, and "I love you, I love you, I love you. Oh my God, you're here, you're back. Where are you?"
Keith shaken by the injuries Sherri said were inflicted on her by 2 Hispanic women who she claimed abducted her at gunpoint.
They branded her. And her poor face, I got like nauseated just looking at her. It was so hard for me to see her like that, and bruises were just intense. The bumps from, being hit and kicked and whatever else.
Keith publicly stood by his wife as she lied through a 5.5-year investigation into her disappearance. The divorce filing lists the day of Sherri's arrest last month as their date of separation, noting she hasn't even seen their children in 3 weeks. As she entered her guilty plea, facing up to 25 years in prison and hundreds of thousands of dollars in restitution fees, Sherri saying in a statement, "I am deeply ashamed of myself for my behavior and so very sorry for the pain I've caused." The judge has granted temporary emergency orders giving Keith full custody and allowing Sherri to call or video conference the kids. Now, both are expected to be in court in 2 weeks for a divorce hearing, but Keith asked in that filing that a judge hold any decision on their permanent parenting arrangement until after her federal sentencing, which is set for July. Guys.
Disappearance.
CHP is advising she is heavily battered and it is confirmed kidnapping.
It's a mysterious return to her sprint away from cameras after being charged with fraud. Sherri Papini's case has left more questions than answers until now. Papini finally admitting the kidnapping that launched a nationwide search 6 years ago was all a hoax. The mother of 2 agreeing to a plea deal, guilty of lying to a federal officer and mail fraud. The 39-year-old releasing a statement through a lawyer reading in part, "I am deeply ashamed of myself for my behavior and so very sorry for the pain I've caused my family, my friends, all the good people who needlessly suffered because of my story." Adding, "I will work the rest of my life to make amends for what I have done." When news of the plea deal broke, NBC cameras were there with detectives who reacted with relief.
The purpose is done. The case is done, essentially. At the end of the day, I think this is a good resolution for everybody in our community, across the nation.
Ever since Papini vanished from her home near Redding, California in November of 2016, those detectives had spent hours working on her case. When she was found branded and in chains on the side of a highway on Thanksgiving, she told them she had been tortured by 2 Hispanic women. Her husband describing the injuries to ABC News.
The bruises were just intense. The bumps from, being hit and kicked and whatever else.
But eventually, DNA evidence found on Papini's clothing was matched to an ex-boyfriend. And when investigators confronted him, he told them Papini orchestrated everything, leaving her husband and children and staying with him in Southern California, even telling him to buy a wood-burning kit at Hobby Lobby to brand her so her story would be believable. At the time, a GoFundMe raised over $49,000 for her, and Papini later collected another $30,000 from a victim's compensation fund.
The community stood up for her and offered her not only monetary funds, but emotional, moral support. And it's just a complete farce for law enforcement and for the nation. And so somebody has to be held accountable.
And Papini is scheduled to be arraigned later today. She faces a possible sentence of up to 25 years in prison, but prosecutors said they're going to be recommending that she receive a reduced sentence.
Yeah, and while she was sort of playing the victim, she raised a lot of money. So what happens to that money? Does she have to pay it back?
Well, she is going to have to pay $30,000 to the California Victims Fund, but the GoFundMe money, that's still kind of up in the air. She is looking at about $300,000 in restitution.
She duped a lot of people.
Yeah, how much GoFund money?
About $50,000.
Well,
They made it all up.
Yeah.
He dated Sherri Papini and says he knows firsthand that she's a world-class fantasist.
She's a compulsive liar. She would, not talk to you for 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden there'd be some fantastical story about what happened.
Shaheen Davari says he dated the mom when she was a 20-year-old youth counselor. Get this, he says he was just 15.
In retrospect, sure, tons of red flags, right? But she was a counselor that was going out with a 15-year-old kid.
Now 35, the professor of communications says Sherri's lies were never ending. For example, she kept insisting she was a skilled surfer.
I surfed all the time when I was 15, 16 years old. It's something that I really enjoyed doing, and she told me that she surfed as well. There was always an excuse as to why she couldn't go surf, and she had to have her surfboard that was at her house but didn't have any pictures.
He says there was also a mystery medical condition.
She was faking a heart condition at one point, and eventually, not only me, but a bunch of people figured out that that was not true.
What did you think when you heard that Sherri Papini was kidnapped?
I was like, there's no way. She's fine. I promise you she's fine. There's just no chance that she got kidnapped.
Papini was arrested Thursday, accused of faking the abduction that riveted the USA in 2016. 3 weeks later, she was found wandering, bruised and branded. Sherri claimed she'd been kidnapped by 2 Hispanic women who put her in a closet with a bucket with kitty litter for her to use as a toilet. She claimed they held her with a chain hooked around her waist. But cops say Papini was actually hiding out at an ex-boyfriend's residence here in Costa Mesa, California. To support her story of a kidnapping, authorities say Papini asked the ex-boyfriend to punch her in the face, which he refused to do. She then purposefully hit her head on the bathtub and the bathroom floor. Authorities say the boyfriend told them Papini also asked him to brand her. Today, the man who dated Papini when he was 15 says he is being wrongly identified as the guy who allegedly hid Sherri Papini. He wants to set the record straight.
I want to stop people thinking that I am the person that hid her or helped her or had any contact with her.
Sherri Papini is charged with making false statements to a federal law enforcement officer and engaging in mail fraud.
Exact.